Thanks for joining me again this week. Earlier this week, I joined public safety leaders, community leaders, and residents at National Night Out celebrations. There were more than 30 across Montgomery County, so I couldn't make all of them. The ones I did visit were pretty well attended by residents, and it was a great opportunity for police, first responders, and county agencies to meet residents and share information on the services we offer. It was the last National Night Out that I will attend as county executive, but it won't be the last one I attend. It's also good to see residents interacting with law enforcement and getting to know the people who show up when you need help. So they're not strangers. Congratulations to the organizers of all the events, large and small. They are important community events here. One of the important functions that the Montgomery County government provides to the community are public health services, part of the Department of Health and Human Services. The role of public health was introduced to many residents during the COVID pandemic because much of what public health does is prevent disease and keep our food supply safe. They were often working under the radar. That's certainly changed with the pandemic. But what we've seen for the last 20 months since the Trump administration took over our nation's government is the systematic dismantling of the U.S. public health system and the medical research systems. There were mass layoffs at National Institutes of Health, a research institution, a leader in learning more about many diseases, and admired around the world. In addition, the president has attacked the National Science Foundation and the National Academies of Science. All these institutions are sources of knowledge and responsible for helping bring that knowledge to bear on human health. This is not as simple as dismissing these attacks as partisan or ignorance of what these institutions do. That is way too generous. The attack on scientific research is because that research may lead to cures on the one hand, but on the other hand, research often leads to causes. And if you understand causes of health problems, and if you can address those causes, there's an expectation that you can solve problems before people get sick. But since the causes are often chemicals that we've been exposed to through the air, water, or that are in our food supply, and because those chemicals are produced by giant corporations, if they can stop people from knowing what things in our environment are dangerous, then they can prevent people from pushing legislation to remove those things from the environment. The knowledge about negative impacts on human health has often been hidden for decades from the public in order to protect the corporate world and special interests from responsibility of poisoning the environment. Knowledge is power, in this case, the power to improve our health and safety. Ignorance leaves us in the dark and unable to identify what in our environment is behind bad health impacts. We have been routinely lied to for decades. Trump and his friends want us to know as little as possible about our environment so that they can prevent the regulation of things that need to be regulated. This is not a policy of ignorance, it's a policy rooted in cynicism and in placing corporate interests above the public interest. Just last week, we saw Dr. Anthony Fauci, the former director of NIH's Institute for Allergy and Infectious Diseases, and the face of the administration during the early days and months of the pandemic, grilled by the Senate committee led by Republican Senator Rand Paul that was focused on making him the scapegoat for missteps the U.S. made, even as he worked closely with the first Trump administration. He was the voice of reason in instances where the president was recommending Americans use untested and dangerous treatments for COVID, such as drinking bleach. Did the United States do everything right in responding to the global pandemic? No country in the world had everything figured out because we hadn't seen anything like this before. But we had the best scientific minds working around the clock to respond. And I'm proud of the work we did in Montgomery County, and where we had one of the highest vaccination rates in the country for a jurisdiction our size. We made deliberate efforts to make sure vaccines and testing were available to all Montgomery County residents, especially those in traditionally underserved communities. If you watched any of the Sunday news shows, you probably saw the Secretary of Health and Human Services, R.F. Kennedy Jr., go off the rails about COVID and continue to cast doubt on the efficacy of vaccinations. This has contributed to a nationwide decrease in children getting immunizations that help protect them from diseases such as the flu and measles. The U.S. now has the distinction of having surpassed the number of measles cases in all of 2025. There have now been multiple large outbreaks and 2,371 confirmed cases. The most cases reported in a single year since the disease was declared eliminated in the year 2000. Thank you very much, RFK, for bringing measles back. In a word, what the President and his so-called Secretary of Health and Human Services have done to our public health system is tragic. Earlier this week, Dr. Georges Benjamin, County Resident and Chief Executive Officer of the American Public Health Association, joined me to talk about the state of public health.
I think it's important for our county residents to really understand how important it is to get expert advice and to follow good science. Tragically, we're not getting that out of our federal government right now. And so it is the hold on us at the local level to step up to the plate. And so we've got good public health officials, a good system in Maryland, and I think we should follow their advice.
Our conversation made clear is that public health is a vital service to our residents and to all Americans. We must continue to rely on science and facts. We will continue to work to keep Montgomery County healthy and to work to reduce disparities in health outcomes. This week, the Maryland General Assembly met in special session to vote on redrawing the state's congressional districts. Both the House of Delegates and the Senate passed a measure which now goes before Maryland voters as a ballot question in November. The President started this when he asked Texas to do midterm redistricting. Even if we could only gain one vote for the Democrats, why wouldn't we? Thank you, Governor Moore, for this effort on this issue, and I want to thank our county delegation for supporting the governor's proposal. If you're a Republican and don't like it, you can thank your party and your president for actively encouraging red states to redistrict Democrats out of the House of Representatives. This is a war your party started in order to try to rig the next election. Expecting the Democrats not to respond is absurd, not to mention incredibly intellectually dishonest. Thank you to our Montgomery County delegation. I was saddened to learn last week about the death of former Maryland Senator Karen Montgomery. She was a remarkable leader, advocate, artist, friend who devoted her life to public service, championing policies grounded in compassion, equity, and dignity. She represented the county's 14th district with insight and unwavering commitment, serving first in the House of Delegates and later in the Maryland Senate, where she became known for her thoughtful approach to complex issues and her ability to bring people together. Often with her husband Harry at her side, Karen's advocacy extended beyond the walls of Annapolis. Her work was deeply personal, shaped in part by her experience as a parent of a child with autism. That lived experience fueled her decades-long commitment to supporting people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. She'd fought for increased funding for the Development Disabilities Administration, improved access to services, and more inclusive policies centered on families and individuals. Her voice ensured that some of our most vulnerable community members were not only seen, but valued. As someone who has also shared the experience of parenting a child with an intellectual disability, I felt a strong connection with Karen. Her empathy and her honesty and her steadfast belief that government has a responsibility to uplift every family made her a trusted ally and a source of strength. I deeply appreciated her encouragement and her insight and the authentic understanding she offered in moments when only another parent can truly understand the journey. Karen's also enriched our community as an accomplished artist. Her creative work, honored through exhibitions such as the sculptural retrospective at the Sandy Spring Museum, reflected her curiosity, courage, and love of the cultural life of the county. We honor Karen not only for the legislation she shaped or the committees she served on, but for her humanity. She led with her heart, and our county is better, stronger, and more compassionate because she gave so much of herself to public service. And she was a strong environmentalist and had a holistic view of how her legislative work can improve our state. On behalf of the residents of Montgomery County, especially those of her beloved Rockville, I extend my deepest condolences to Karen's family. We'll remember her leadership, her artistry, her advocacy, and her fierce commitment to building a community where every person has the opportunity to thrive. In some good news, after sediment testing last week, the county health officer, Dr. Keisha Davis, lifted all remaining health advisories for the Potomac River shoreline and sediment. This includes removal of the contact advisory specific to the shoreline and the river sediment between Lock 11 and the shoreline surrounding Minnie's Island. In addition to ongoing water monitoring, sediment testing in these areas has shown that bacterial concentrations have returned to acceptable levels. This is good news. Since signing Expedited Bill 2326 last week, we learned that the U.S. Justice Department has filed a lawsuit arguing that buffer zones near parks, schools, and places of worship violate the Second Amendment. and recent Supreme Court precedent. I cannot comment on pending legislation, but I'll reaffirm my support for any measure we can in order that is helpful in helping us reduce gun violence and protecting our communities. Sadly, last week, we had another young person, 25-year-old, drowned in the Potomac River, and that brought this year's death total to 3 in the last 3 months. I want to express my condolences to the family and friends of the victim, a young man from Virginia. Montgomery County Fire and Rescue Services and the Montgomery County Department of Police are working with the U.S. Park Service on a public education campaign about the dangers of swimming in the river. Last week, they filmed several public service announcements that will be widely shared on social media. Let me say this again. It is illegal to swim in the Potomac River, and it's dangerous. If you don't care about the legality part, care about the dangerous part. Avoid swimming in the river due to the strong currents and sudden drops in the riverbed that can make swimming there very hazardous, deceptively so. You don't see the undertows until you're pulled into them. I was pleased last week to join Maryland Comptroller Brooke Learman and other elected officials as the Comptroller opened a new office in Rockville. The Comptroller's office serves Maryland residents and businesses by administering the state's tax system, providing taxpayer assistance, and collecting revenue and promoting fiscal accountability. The new Rockville branch office, located in King Farm, will provide Montgomery County residents and businesses with convenient access to in-person services, reducing the need to travel to Annapolis for assistance. There are several weeks left of summer break for students, but it's not too early to check your child's immunization records to ensure that they're up to date on the required vaccinations before the start of the school year. The county's Department of Health and Human Services, DHHS, is offering free vaccination clinics for students now through Friday, September 25th, to help families ensure children are up to date on required school immunizations before the start of the new school year. In other good news, Montgomery County's National Farmers Market Week runs through Saturday, August 8th. There are more than 30 farmers markets in Montgomery County, and this is the height of the summer produce season. If you don't have the space for your own garden or don't have a green thumb, check one out. There is no way you will be disappointed. Find information on the farmers markets available on our Office of Agricultural website at www.montgomerycountymd.gov/office-agriculture. That's a wrap for this week. I hope you spend some time at the Agricultural Fair, which begins this Friday, the 14th, and runs through Saturday, August 22nd. Nothing spells summer like a trip to the county fair, and I hope you join me there, and hopefully I'll run into you. In the meantime, see you again next week.